From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in North Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to you. It is February 17th, 2019, and we have about a month left here before we're done with this winter nonsense. And for me, it can't come soon enough because this is the time of year I start getting just fed up with not only the winter weather and the slop and all that other stuff, but I get tired of social media and the nasty bickering and fighting and comments and attacks and oh boy, we're fed up with it. I'm done with it. I'm over it. All right, so I'm waiting for spring to come because then things calm down, and all the snow lovers and snow weenies and people complaining about, oh, we didn't get as much snow this year. This is a bust, blah blah blah. Yeah, who cares, really? It's going to be spring soon enough, and I will outline this outlook when that's going to happen. I keep a realistic approach to these videos every single week. I don't try to give you false hope. If I see something that is there, that's possibly there, or maybe a pattern shift that looks like it's going to be favorable or whatever, as I'm looking at the time, I'm going to say it. But some things didn't work out this year, and there's a reason for that. I'll go over that in this video also. Some just didn't work out, and that happens. That's why we do these every single week. It's if you expect something. If that was the case, I could do one of these videos in November and never have to do one again because it's going to be exactly like I said every single week, straight through the end of winter. Okay, it's going to change. Things change. That's what happens. Okay, it is what it is. All right, so here is the going forward for about the next month or so. We do have some ups and downs here going through the end of February. I don't see it really locking in anything one way or the other. We're going to have some near to slightly above average periods, some near to slightly below average periods, kind of near average periods. This is all going through the end of February. I do think we have a slightly above average period here from around the 21st to 25th, but either way, it looks like we're going to just kind of hover near average on either side of average here. Then once we get to the month of March, we are going to start off, I think, colder than average for the first 10 days or so. After that, the 11th through the 17th period here, I think we flip to spring mode. That's it. Somewhere between that week there is when we're done. And we don't look back. It's not one of those, oh, well, it's going to be warm that week and it's going to go back to cold. No, doesn't look like it. All right. And I get the same people every year. Again, I always identify who the snow weenies are. Easily. Because as soon as I put something up like this, I put this up in a long range here on Friday, and the comment thread was enormous with people, well, look at last year. Last year it snowed all the way up until almost April, or actually beginning of April. It could happen again this year. That's not normal, okay? Last year was like an anomalous thing. We do get snow into March. Yes, we do. Usually favoring the beginning of March. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in this week right here, the 1st to the 10th. After that, forget it. Not this year. Doesn't look like it. And I'll show you why. Now, there's a lot more. If you want to say, well, you've been wrong about a few cold pushes here and there throughout the year. And yeah, well, I have been. Okay? And I'll admit that. That's fine. But at the time I was doing the videos or doing the long-range outlooks, it looked like we were going to have a flip to cold. It was going to be more sustainable. But there was a problem here that we identified that was really screwing things up here, and that isn't going away. So my chances of this spring mode flip here around between the 11th and 17th happening is pretty high, okay? Pretty high. A lot easier to predict that than it would be to project cold. So anyway, we have a couple systems coming in here, one tonight, one again here on Wednesday. Wednesday could be interesting, at least to start, but after that I think we will change over to different forms of precipitation. I don't think that's an all-snow event. We have some other storm signals beyond that. This one I'm not really too fond about. I didn't list anything at the beginning of March here, and I did that on purpose because I don't want people to run with, oh, well, Bobby thinks we're going to have a big snowstorm at the beginning of March. If there is a chance for anything of significance, it would be in that first 10 days. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But there is an opportunity straight through the 10th. Once you get past the 10th, forget it. We're done. So there are some other storm signals down the pipeline here. Could be in early March or something like that. We could have something there also. I didn't list that on purpose. But February is not going to be below average cold like we looked at the month before using analogs. The 2014, 2015 analog carried us to a point. After that, it really followed its own analog. So we had to adjust everything there. And again, that's why we do this week to week. Now March will start off cold, but I still think it finishes at least slightly above average by month's end, +1 to +4, because we're going to have a nice surge here as we get into the month of March. And actually, looking ahead to April, I think is going to be a very warm month, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Warm relative to average, of course. Could have some 70-degree days up in there also. But precipitation is going to remain above average as we go into the month of March. Now, here is the Madden-Julian oscillation, and this isn't too bad. And it's a weak phase 8, which is like right about here. There's really not too much going on here, but it's a very weak signal. But it's the wave is right here. Okay, so you do have a phase 8 right now. It's just a very weak phase 8, and you can see that right here, weaker side of phase 8. Now, here's the GEFS, which is finally... This was pulling all kinds of nonsense, going into 7, 8, all the way up here, and doing loops and all kinds of nonsense. It's finally come into the European model projection somewhat, where it's going through 8 slowly and then goes into phase 1. Well, that's been the European guidance projections all along, and the European guidance is keeping that phase 8 and then phase 1 and then eventually phase 2 between now and the 3rd of March. These are typically cold and stormy phases. Stormy's going to be there, and we will have some periods that are going to be cold, but it's not going to be dominating cold like normal when you see everything else working out, because we don't have any other favorable kill connections. We have something killing it here. I'll give you that in a second, too. It's really what killed this winter, too. But regardless, we go through the colder phases of 8, 1, 2, and then eventually get to 3. 3 is a transition phase before we head into the maritime continent, and then your winter's completely over. Look where this goes out to, March 18th. We get into phase 3, phase 4, that's the end of it. Okay, this is the Euro Weeklies here. This is the European ensembles. Very consistently showing the same thing over the past couple weeks, really. European model is very good with tropical forcing. If you're using the GEFS for tropical forcing, it's usually lost. And it comes on and it caves to this idea eventually. Every once in a while, blind squirrel finds a nut, but not this time. Not with tropical forcing. I don't use the GEFS for tropical forcing typically. The Euro is not only a superior model as far as dealing with systems, and sometimes is better at handling certain things than others with actual systems, but in tropical forcing, it is far above and beyond everything else. So this has been very consistent, and it is going through the colder phases. Phase 8 is a colder phase. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are colder phases. Phase 3 even to a point. But it's a transitional phase into phase 4 and 5, which are warmer. So we don't expect this to last. There is a time limit to what we have for winter here. And this is why, this is the reason, and this is not a marvel here, this is the Earth. I'm going to explain to you what happened here for this winter. Despite these very nice phases here that we're going into finally, because we were always stuck up here in these bad phases and was blamed on that for a while. Well, the real reason is because of this very fast specific jet, which isn't too atypical in an El Nino. But typically you have, one dominant southern branch here like this, okay? And it's a very long jet extension across the Pacific. That is not abnormal for an El Nino. But it usually comes across the southern United States, and that's it. But you notice here, we've been doing a lot of this split flow nonsense, where it's like this. Here's one, and here's the other. Well, a split flow, you're not going to get a lot of cold air surge into the United States. And just to give you a point of reference here, I know there's a lot of colors on the map here, it's hard to see. This is North America right here, okay? More specifically, you are right here, okay? Here is Canada, here's the US, here's Mexico, Alaska's sitting up here. Okay, just to give you a point of reference. But this is looking at the 250 millibar level where the jet stream is, and you can see this very split flow jet that is not good. It's very fast jet here, and actually the dominant one is actually the northern one. You don't want that to be the dominant feature, and that's been happening a lot this winter. So it doesn't matter how great these phases are that normally project cold and snow. You look at phase 8, cold. Phase 1, cold. Phase 2, cold. Phase 3, cold. Phase 4, warm. All right, this is going to work. I got stuff popping up here. This is going to work here when we get to phase 4 eventually. But if you have this kind of jet configuration, very fast specific jet is one thing, and that's normal in an El Nino. You do have, this is a normal El Nino. Extended Pacific jet stream, amplified storm track. We did not have the amplified storm track because we had that split flow jet. Can't get amplified with this nonsense, and this is extremely fast. So a normal El Nino extends across the southern United States. So you have a wetter than average go at it right along here in the southern United States. Well, this jet actually was further north. So you got a lot of these cutters coming into the west. This has been the jet. Instead of being down here, it's up here, right here. So you have a lot of cutters in that pattern where you have stuff cutting in the Great Lakes, and you have warmer systems, maybe starting as wintry, and then going over to something else. So I think that's going to be the pattern continuing through the end of the month. You're going to have this nonsense coming in here. So we have the next 3 weeks. It also allows, in this configuration here, when it's up further north than that, you allow the southeast ridge to flex a little bit. So the next 3 weeks, this is the next 5 days, between the 15th and 19th. And then here is the 20th to 24th time period, still above average here in this region, at least slightly above average. But then toward the end of the month, we start turning a little bit cooler, and into the first week of March, we are cooler than average. So we will have a cooler than average period coming. It's just going to be very late February and early March. Can you time something in there? Yeah, you could. Is it definite? No. It's a storm signal. We have a couple slop systems we're going to be dealing with in the meantime. Here's Sunday night. This map is going to stand as cold, by the way. Very light stuff going on here, mostly ice down here in this pink area. Maybe a coating to an inch of snow/sleet at the onset, going over to maybe some light freezing rain and drizzle in this gray area. Maybe a little bit over an inch once you get up a little bit further north, up closer to I-80, and then north of I-80 here, you might be 2 to 3 inches of snow. The same thing up here in extreme northwestern New Jersey. Might get into like a 2 to 3. Excuse me, 2 to 3, or maybe localized 4 in some higher elevations. But this is just a quick moving system coming in this evening and going overnight. Not a real big deal. Might be some delays in some of these northern areas, and that's it. The next system we're watching behind that is Wednesday afternoon and night. And I do think you're going to come in as snow initially. It's going to be one of those systems cutting again, just like we've been very familiar with. Snow is going to come in initially, and then we're going to go over to sleet, freezing rain, and then rain. So there's the progression of the GFS. Here is snow to start. Then you get that transition somewhere toward Wednesday evening, and then overnight you end as rain, but it's just very light rain at the end of it. So it's not like a big system in terms of it's very similar to last Monday night and Tuesday, but it's just not as much precipitation with it. So not as potent. What could be potent on the front end is if the NAM is correct. This is looking at 700 millibar frontogenesis. So this is your added lift and forcing that goes into the initial thump of snow. This is indicating that you're going to have a pretty good thump of snow on the front end, and you can see that here in the simulated radar too, responding to this. So we might have to watch for maybe like a 3 to 4 hour period. It's not going to be long. 3 to 4 hour period at the onset where you're getting like an inch an hour rates or something like that, and you get a quick 1 to 3, 2 to 4 on the front end before you go over to this sleet, freezing rain stuff. And then behind that, I don't think it's going to be lasting too long. Maybe just some light freezing rain drizzle type thing happening after that. Maybe just drizzle after that point. But it doesn't look like it's going to be hanging around long. Just an initial thump comes in. This is not a big snowstorm. Not going to trend that way, I don't think. So if you're holding out for that, I wouldn't do so. We are going to have maps out for this on Monday, most likely. We're going to stick with, on the front weather alerts page today, just going to have this, and that's it. Which is not going to be updated. I think we're going to stand as called with this and just ride with it. We're going to send out alerts for specific areas for timing, start and end times with this, and how much you're getting for individual counties. But again, not a real big deal tonight. Once we get into Wednesday, it'll be a bigger deal, but not huge. Okay. So just to give you that idea of what's going on there. Year to date, again, this is our snowfall year to date. And this is put together by the National Weather Service Eastern Region, and they put these very nice graphics out that I like to replicate here in the videos. This is the year to date snowfall by area. And you can clearly see the areas that were shafted. It's right along I-95 and points south and east. Here's I-95, just like this. This is the I-95 corridor all up to the coast. These areas did not have much snow this year. Not at all. They're all below average. And the one little spot here, if you look here in South Jersey and northern Delaware, this was a result of a couple inverted troughs that were in the area. See that area that's a little bit more? So actually Atlantic City is above average. Slightly, but above average nevertheless. This is a result of either some inverted troughs or some low pressure systems kind of tracking south of the region like this and clipping these areas on the northern side on the way out. But for the most part, the I-95 corridor is below average. Kind of near to slightly below average, just northwest of I-95 as you get in this area. This lighter yellow is 12 to 24 inches, and then you get in its 24 to 36 range up in northeast PA, the mountains of central Pennsylvania up to State College and north central Pennsylvania. So they did okay. Still nothing to write home about. And if you look at, again, I used this in the last week's video, the Philadelphia seasonal snowfalls for the last 30 years, and you can see the majority of these are below average. I mean, the average is 22.4 there. You're probably going to be below average this year too. But yeah, I think just the whole idea, the concept here, is looking at perceptions being reality. I get that. But the last couple of years here, last several years, were mostly above average snowfall, and that's what people get accustomed to and think that's the normal, and it's really not. So just be careful with those expectations of expecting a big storm. When I was talking about throwing the towel in a couple weeks ago, we were talking about big nor'easter type storms, having that the rest of the year. I was about to throw the towel in on that. I'm still not going to throw it yet because you might have an opportunity at the beginning of March when you're in this transition period in phase 3, which, let me go back to it here. When you get into phase 3 here in the beginning of March here, that's a transitional phase. Sometimes when you go into transitional phases, you can have a big storm coming out of that. So I don't want to completely write it off yet or throw the towel on that. The odds are low. I will give you that. But there is still a chance. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen before the 10th of, or before the 11th of March. Once we have flip in that week between the 11th and 17th, and that's it. And that'll be effectively end winter beyond that point. But we still have some opportunities, kind of BS stuff, slop crap, go all the way through the end of February. You might have something that might be a little bit more interesting in the beginning of March, maybe. It's, again, not a guarantee, but after the 10th, I think you're done. Here is our summary for today. We're watching two systems that will bring wintry weather between tonight and Wednesday night. Again, tonight's not really a huge deal except for far northern areas where it's just low to moderate type stuff, you know. And then once we get into Wednesday, it looks like Wednesday afternoon this comes in, goes into the evening, might have a thump of snow on the front end going over to sleet, freezing rain, and or freezing drizzle, that kind of thing. But it doesn't look like a huge system either. We do have storm signals that remain through early March. It might be, whether that's rain or snow system still is yet to be determined. Whether or not early March features something that might be a little bit larger, again, to be determined. Low chances, but it's still there. Still steering away from the big coastal storm ideas going forward. We don't expect a Godzilla storm right now. If that's going to happen, it will be during that first week of March. After that, I don't expect that to occur because spring arrives between the first and second week of March, between the 11th and 17th. So that's our summary for today, and that's our Weather Weeklies videos for this Sunday, February 17th. If you join us next week, maybe we'll have a better look at early March and see if there's any potential there. If not, just expect that we have another 3 weeks or so. There is three weeks or thereabout of wintry type precipitation that we could have to deal with. After that, we should flip to spring. Take care.